Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Today I'm co-hosting with Captain Patric Garmeson with Ugly Fishing, and this week's show was brought to us by Killer Dock. We've really been enjoying having our sponsors on. They know how much we appreciate them, I hope, and this week we have Jay Williamson with Killer Dock on the show. How are we doing today, Jay?
Man, it's going really well. Thank you guys for having me on. Really looking forward to this.
Oh, man, thank you guys for the sponsors that bring this show free to our listeners each week, man. That's the real OG. How you guys been?
Man, we've been doing really, really well, and, love the show. We love what you guys are doing. It was funny, last week I was driving down the road, and I was listening to the podcast, and Richard was on there talking, him and Patrick, I think, and I was listening, hearing Richard's voice, and all of a sudden my phone rang, and I came up a number on my truck, but it was Richard. And so I still heard his voice, and I was like, what's going on here? But anyway, I was telling him how much that I really, really appreciated you guys. And it's like sitting on a dock and listening to some professional fishermen giving you some tips that you would never hear otherwise. So it's really been great.
It's like fishing when you're not fishing. It's the best.
It is.
Well, man, I know you guys got some exciting new things over at Killer Dock. Tell us a little bit about it. I know you guys you're not really changing up the design, but just introducing some new things that people were asking about, right?
Yes, we are. You know, we started out this spring, and we had a couple shows, and we listened to some of the needs and concerns of fishermen, and one that some guys talked about was having the standard table, or the ones with the slots in the back, just for really getting rid of the water and the guts, and not worried about the mess on their dock as much. Mm-hmm. So we introduced a table. It's called the slot, and it really meets the function of what they were looking for, and really excited about that. It's a really cool design. It's been really nice anyway. But the other one that we had some guys really asking for was a larger table. So our standard table is a 5-foot table. Well, had a lot of fishermen say, man, I really want one bigger. So we've introduced the stretch, and the stretch is an 8-foot table, which gives you plenty of area to clean those big fish. So really excited about that. And it's really taken off. Oh yes, absolutely. So it's been really, really, really going well. People have loved the stretch and the slot, and of course the upscale model, which is a really clean design, looks really nice on everybody's dock. So
yeah, that upscale is really sharp looking. I really like the idea of that slot too, because like you said, there's a lot of people that aren't too worried about the guts going through. I mean, once you're washing up, it's not a real big deal to blast those off the dock once you're done. So.
Well, it hangs over enough that I really wouldn't be worried about that too much with the slot anyways.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good design. Again, it's not as clean. Guys like Richard that really don't like their feet getting wet, they want to have something like the upscale. It drains below the dock, but the guys that don't worry about that and get splashed on, get the slot, save a little money, and it looks nice and still cleans up well. But it's just a different version, man.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see you guys taking off with that. I know you guys have been doing some stuff all the way from Louisiana all the way down to South Florida.
Yes, we have. We've had hit a couple spots up, and it's really taken off in Louisiana, and now it's moving down into Florida, and everybody's getting on the water. They're starting to see these things, and they are impressive. We're really proud of them. The other thing that folks have been doing, and now that they're fishing a lot more, is catching fish, having them on their table and taking pictures of them and tagging us. And that's been really helpful, for us. And it's exciting seeing people use that. So, that we're able to add it to our Facebook site or on our website. It's really great.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And it's something you can be proud of. You want to show it off. It's awesome.
That's right.
Well, one thing, Jay, I think y'all do such a great job at listening to your customers and making adjustments and trying to find the needs of the people that are out there. So, I mean, that in itself goes such a long ways with any type of business. So,
for sure.
Kudos to y'all for taking the effort to make that happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we do. That is something we really value is the opinions of the folks that are using the product, and we want to make the best one there is, and we feel like that it is, and want to continue to do that. Appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show this week, and thank you again for bringing this show each week to everyone for free, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Thanks again for having me.
All right, Jay. Be good, bud.
All right. Thanks.
All right, Patrick, we're going to head on down to Orange Beach Marina and see what Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection, is up to. How we doing, Angelo?
What's happening, guys? What's happening?
Man, got some blue skies over there finally, and the wind dying down a little bit.
Man, we're going to have some great weather this weekend. I anticipate a bunch of people being out on the water. We have the Pensacola International. Starts tomorrow at noon. So, there's going to be a lot of people chasing blue water fishes over the next couple of days.
For sure,
and if you're not fishing the tournament, like, what do you go fish for? That's kind of like the question right now. We're in the middle of summer. It's hot. Blue water is pushed out. Last time I looked, which was yesterday, right around Blind Faith. So it's going to be long runs, no matter where you're going, where you're leaving from.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on the back, about a week on the backside of a full moon, which typically makes for really poor nighttime sword fishing. So I wouldn't anticipate a lot of those being caught at night. I will say this: the daytime bite on the backside tends to be pretty good. It's just they try to switch up their feeding times. But like you said, we have a clear sky, which means high barometric pressure, usually grouper and deep drop fish and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You bite pretty good. Current shouldn't be too bad, just when you're thinking backside of full moon versus leading up to it. Current ought to be slacked off, which makes snapper fishing pretty good. I'm not sure about you guys, but when there's a ton of current, it feels like the fish just hold up on the spot really tight, and it's hard to hold the boat over it. So, it's just hard to present your bait to a fish where you can actually catch them.
Yeah, it's definitely a different ball game for sure whenever the current's ripping.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I don't do a lot of Gulf fishing or offshore fishing, but we do some snapper fishing, do some snapper charters on the weekends, and man, we were having to use 8-ounce weights, and I was having to use both the trolling motor and my big motor to try to hold us in place. And, somebody like me who only is only holding spots offshore a couple times a year.
That's tough.
Man, it's a lot of work and trying to do that. So, it was a challenge this past weekend for me, but we got some fish. Good,
man. So I'm sure all the charter boat guys have been crushing the snapper, and you've been seeing some other colors come in too, grouper and all that too. Out there, Orange Beach Marina, Angelo.
Grouper, snapper. We're seeing a fair amount of dolphin, wahoo, tuna fishing, and I'm sure people will chime in. But tuna fishing has been tough this year.
Yeah.
I mean, really tough the past 2 years. But this year, I was talking to Bill's staff on the Sea Spray yesterday. They were out at the iHub and couldn't catch a blackfin. Is how tough it was.
Wow.
So, but there's lots of grass, which means you typically have dolphin and wahoo, which it's kind of what we're talking about this week and how to catch them, because right now there's been lots of grass, but there's big patches, but there's also tons of scattered grass, which if you're trolling can make for a really long day in the cockpit. So my tip to kind of deal with that is, and plus if you're trolling, especially on a weekend like this where there's going to be a lot of people out there doing it, those fish have seen lures go back and forth all day long, and typically they're going to be hard to catch. So what we like to do in that situation, especially targeting stuff like dolphin, bring out a lot of live bait, croakers, pinfish, alewives, cigar minnows, typically whatever you catch. You get on those grass patches, those fish aren't too picky. And then I like to bring out 50, 60, 50 to 100 pounds of pokies or something I can chum with, and get up over to them and throw out a couple pieces of chum, kind of see what's out there. And one thing I've noticed when you get a bunch of dolphin, and we throw out a few pieces of chum, the first thing I want to try to catch them on is an artificial, something like a gotcha plug, some sort of jig or something like that. And then I want to try to start catching them on that chum. And then right at the end, I want to start fishing them for live bait. What happens is they kind of get picky and they kind of figure out what you're doing. So they'll quit hitting that artificials first. You might be able to catch a few on a piece of chum. They'll kind of figure out what's going on with that. And then that's when we start deploying the live baits. Of course, if there's a big one, we're going to go right out with the live bait first.
Sure.
But that's a nice little tip if you're targeting those fish. And what I would always say is make sure you have some, something with some steel leader, because while you're doing that, there's a good chance, wahoo or something's going to show up. And if you're into it, have something ready to pitch for a blue marlin, a big hardtail or something. Now, I don't know, I can recall at least a handful of times we're out there on a weed patch and you're catching chicken dolphin, or, maybe there's some nice ones out there. The blue marlin pulls up behind your boat. Kind of one of those things we always talk about, it being prepared for every situation.
That's right. Well, that's where they live. They're going to be eating those fish. I mean, that's what they do. I know it's really important with certain species that I've learned in my experience, which take it or leave it. But I think with a dolphin on, like you say, do a little artificial, then a little cut bait, and then they get smart, they adapt a little bit. Leave one in the water. Hook one of those things and keep that fish in the water. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's a nice one, you're going to want to land it. But if it's a chicken dolphin or a turkey dolphin, like I like to call them, that 15-pound range, leave them in the water. Let them sit there and go crazy, because it's going to call them all up. They'll get in kind of a frenzy, and then whenever your buddy hooks one, just always make sure you communicate and leave one down in the water.
You're just constantly rotating them out.
That's exactly right.
And I was actually going to get into that, but there's actually a kind of a technique to that. When you're kind of bailing dolphin, is you're fishing basically 2 or 3 rods tops, but you're constantly pulling one in and leaving one out. And that's just kind of the rotation of it. And I'll tell you, your chances of you catching a big one doing that is really good. We're going to be fishing this weekend, and we're going to be geared up for it, just in case it's tough trolling. There's lots of grass, and we're kind of talking about that. That's a good way. If you've been up and down on the same piece of water with big patches, you might want to just pull all your gear in for a minute and go really dig a little deeper what may be underneath that grass. Then if you're in scatter grass, man, I wouldn't pull a whole ton of baits, because you're going to kill yourself all day reeling that stuff in, getting the grass off of it. And I feel like if you got something in the water and they're hungry, you pull it over the top of them, you're probably going to get a bite.
I would think so as well. That's a great tip, man. What's going on over there on the real estate? On the real estate side, you got any upcoming listings or anything?
Man, real estate's hot right now. We've got a canal front lot on Ono Island. We're about to list. It's going to be priced appropriately. We've got a Phoenix on the Bay 2 that we're about to list. 3-bedroom, 3-bath, great views, great unit. We had it appraised. We're going to list it exactly for appraised value, $509,000. That thing will not last long. And man, if you are a boater and you've got a little bit of coin, we're about to list a yacht club unit on Terry Cove. 4-bedroom, 4.5-bath, travertine, granite, everything. A 60-foot boat slip, a 35-foot boat slip, 0 entry pool. Just really one of the great buildings. Praised at $1,025,000. We're going to list it for $985,000. My guess is that thing doesn't last long. Even at that price point, people are able to recognize a pretty good deal.
Heck yeah, man.
So we're excited. I'm going to get to go fishing this weekend for the first time in a little while.
All right.
And real estate's on fire, and hopefully the fish will cooperate with us.
Life is good. That's awesome, Angelo. We appreciate you being on the show as always, man. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Good luck, Angelo.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one. Y'all have a good weekend. I'll talk to you later.
Bye, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
All right, Patrick. Sometimes things happen and you just got to talk about them, man. We got to have a special guest on the show this week. Chris Hood, the captain of the 62-foot Viking It Just Takes Time, is fresh off a pretty good win. And I reached out to Mr. Chris, and Captain Chris, and he was so gracious enough to come on the show with us today and tell his story about his big payout and his big marlin that he killed this past weekend in the Emerald Coast Blue Marlin Classic. How are we doing today, Captain Chris?
Doing fantastic. How are y'all?
Man, we are Chris, man. You still soaking it up, still living high on the hog, I hope.
Oh yes, trying to savor every moment I can, and it still doesn't seem like it really happened, but I'm grateful every morning I wake up that it definitely wasn't a dream.
Man, that's awesome. I want to start out by congratulating you. That's quite an accomplishment. I know we were talking a minute ago, and infamous. You're going to be up there with the big names now, and I really, 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 really like to see the local guys doing awesome, and just proud of you guys, and I want to congratulate you first of all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Something that, as a sport fishing captain, it's something that you definitely are striving for constantly.
Yeah, man, that's like it's like a grand slam in the World Series, 9th inning, down by 1, down by 2, right?
It's up there for sure.
Cool,
it's
man.
Definitely up there.
How big was the marlin?
We ended up being 574 pounds. The short length on her was 114 inches, which actually, for 114-inch fish, that's actually pretty decent weight.
It is.
Actually, last year I caught one that was 117 and only weighed 521. So
it doesn't matter. It's all about how it calculates in the tournament, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Well, how much did you guys end up winning?
The final check amount was $596,025.
How many inches did you say he was? 596.
Yeah, 114 inches long and 574. So it was almost $1,000 a pound. It was actually over $1,000 a pound.
$5,228 a foot, is that, or an inch? Is that right? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's about right.
That's freaking awesome.
Well, that's awesome,
Hey,
man.
Chris, I got a question, and I think other listeners might be interested as well. So tell us a little bit about why the payout was so high on this particular fish.
Well, in this tournament, it's one of, in my opinion, the top 3 tournaments as far as participation, notoriety, and payout along the Gulf Coast. And I think it was 80 or 81 boats in it, and the tournament pays out money, the tournament money, and then there's optionals too. Well, normally in a tournament there's 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, there could be multiple blue marlin caught, and they pay each spot with the tournament money and the Calcutta money. Well, it would turn out, as fate would have it, we ended up being the only ones who killed a blue marlin in this tournament. So we got first, second, and third place money for the tournament money and the optional Calcutta money as well. So it was kind of a perfect storm.
Man, that's a perfect storm, man. Congratulations on being able to take advantage of that.
Heck yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's what really made it even more special. And when we weighed the fish, honestly, I was just thinking to myself, please God, just let us make the board. Let us stay, at least make third place. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought with the teams that we were competing against that there's not going to be another fish killed.
Got the sweep.
But lo and behold,
sometimes it works out like that. It's awesome.
It does.
I'll take it.
Heck yeah.
I'll
take hear about the fish, man. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, Chris, give us a story.
Well, I mean, we decided that we didn't want to fish the same old rigs we'd been fishing the past couple tournaments. We were going to kind of go all or nothing, zero or hero, and so I decided that we're going to go over to a rig in Green Canyon. I spent a lot of time fishing Green Canyon when I was captain of that years ago, so I'm real familiar with it. And I also decided that we're going to need to get fuel on our way, so we went into Baptiste Colette. Stopped there at Venice and got fuel, topped our main tanks off and blasted out and lost 3 or 4 hours of fishing because of that. But anyways, we fished that afternoon on a little drill ship out right there off the river, and with no success. And we chugged overnight to Tahiti, the rig that I just decided to go to because I've had so much success there in the past. And actually, I woke up, we all share wheel watch at night so we can get some rest. And I got up on the bridge at 3 a.m. and I'm looking at the seas and I'm scratching my head thinking, oh man, I made a big mistake. It is much rougher than what the forecast was calling for. I mean, the waves, top of the waves were about even with the deck of the bridge, fly bridge. It was 6 to 8 easily, and I was thinking to myself, man, if it gets much bigger than this, I'm going to have to figure out where I can go, just chugging down sea to get us out of this stuff. But fortunately, it didn't get any bigger. We got to the rig. We started to catch our bait, and bait was tough to come by that morning. I mean, we ended up. We have 12 tubes. We ended up with 6 when we started fishing. About our second or third offer on the rig, we actually lost a couple baits, and it was kind of looking bleak, to be honest. We had 2 out and 3 in the tubes.
So y'all just slow trolling, just bumping those. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
just bumping those live baits around.
Yeah, bumping those black fins around the live baits, and we've got a sonar, and so I'm still learning how to use this thing because it's pretty sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there messing with the sonar, looking around, and I see something that might be a target, but I'm not sure yet. But anyways, that thing's like playing a video game. You can get sucked into it and not realize what's going on around you. But I did. I happened to look up. I looked back at the baits, and I noticed something where the left bait would be. It looked like it either had grass on or something. Just didn't look right. I was kind of staring, and suddenly this fish, the blue marlin, lunges out of the water from the side, crashes onto the bait, and all I can do is I probably shouldn't repeat what I said, but it had left side in there too. And,
right.
So, anyways, we were on. Boss man, he was up in the chair, and he gets in the chair, and it was a fun fight. It was big seas, and we got water coming over the transom, and the fish stays up on top, makes some good hard runs. I'm able to really back down hard and do some fun maneuvering on this fish. A few times my boss, I'm pretty sure he thought he was getting waterboarded from all the water and hitting him in the face from backing down. Yeah, pretty much. And so anyways, we're fighting the fish. And I'd seen the fish. I knew it was a pretty good one, and we were going to have to at least measure. And I told the guys, get the flying gas out, get them ready. And they were ready. And so anyways, we get about 2.5 hours later, we get the fish boat side, and the 2 guys that mate for me, I wouldn't call one a first or one a second. They're both 1A, 1B. Well, one of them it's got the flying gaff. He says, "Oh, there ain't no doubt," and he thinks it's still. And at this point, I'm still not sure, but I was like, "Well, we're committed now." And we drag the fish in the boat, and we put the tape on her, and she's 114, and it's partying, high-fiving, hollering from there.
Man, that's awesome.
And
that fires me up.
It was fun, and it went exactly like it should.
That's awesome.
Thank God.
Textbook is, and a lot to be said for that.
And, oh yes, no doubt. I've been a part of and responsible for some of the stuff that can go wrong out there.
Oh yeah.
And did a quick calculation on time and fuel. Punched in Destin Buoy. We're 286 miles from the Destin Buoy.
Wow.
I knew I had enough fuel, so we went, got in there at about 7 p.m. And drone was flying, following the boat. We could hear charter boats talking about us, saying, "Oh, those big guys are coming in to weigh a fish." It was like we were a hero's welcome.
That's what it's all about.
Back into the weigh dock, and they're playing music, and everybody's families are there. My wife and 2 boys are there, and there's a big crowd, and they're all cheering for us. It was awesome.
That is awesome, buddy. I wish you could see my face. I got a grin ear to ear because that stuff fires me up. That's what I like.
I'm grinning too.
Definitely, that is why we go fishing right there.
That's right.
That moment.
That's right, man. I do miss tournament fishing, but
I miss it too until it's those other times that we're here at 8-foot seas not catching anything.
That's all part of it.
Except for a headache.
That's right. Got to take the good with the bad, and the good outweighs the bad a lot, as you know.
Oh, the good by far outweighs the bad. It's no doubt. It was
always.
Yeah.
Well, it was an awesome experience.
Good, man. And congratulations again, Captain Chris, and we really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your experience with us, buddy.
My pleasure. Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
All right, no problem, guys.
All right. So we just had wrapped up with Chris Hood. So let's move on to the inshore world with Captain Bobby Abruscato, king of the speckled trout.
That's a new one. I hadn't heard that one yet.
What you say, Bobby?
Well, actually, thanks. I appreciate it. Actually,
O.P. Harrison, in my mind, is the king of speckled trout. I still refer to him as the king, So,
right.
So I don't know if the crown's being passed on, but I do appreciate it.
You'll be the Joker
anyway.
of the speckled trout.
That's exactly. That's more like. Hey, now you're talking Bobby. Now you're talking about Bobby. Now, baby.
All right.
You're right about that.
What you got going on this week, man?
Well, dude, I mean, you know what we've been through the last couple of weeks. It's been, we have really battled it, between the post full moon and these wicked west and southwest winds that we've been having for the last 2 weeks. And then we, finally the wind clocked around. Actually, it clocked around last night dramatically. I was down at the island, and man, I woke up at 10 o'clock. And don't laugh, guys, that I was already in bed and asleep at 10 o'clock. We've already been through this with Faya. They give me a hard time about going to bed early, but I was asleep, and I woke up at 10 o'clock, and the shutters were I'd blown my doors downstairs open. But anyway, it instantly came around to the north, and I'll tell you what, it didn't even bother me waking up because I was so tickled to death to finally have some north and east wind today to clean this water up, man. And the fish reacted well. I got to fish some water that I haven't been able to fish for the last few weeks, and like we were talking about before we went on the air, man, it was a huge numbers day today. I got a chance to fish a lot of fish that I haven't been able to fish for a couple of weeks, and they were ready to eat. There's tons of fish. I caught a lot of small fish today. We caught plenty of legal-sized fish today. And the trend looks like through the weekend, we're going to keep this east wind, which is going to clean that water up, going to continue to clean the water up. Even on the tough days, though, Patrick, we were, going down and fishing some of the structure on the inside of the island. And the good news is there's plenty of fish there. There's a lot of community spot fishing there. But again, there's plenty of fish there if you get stuck down in those areas, and made several trips down there fishing some of the marked reefs down towards the west end. And then had a few days where we picked up over at Fort Morgan, and I fished out in the bay, which is another place you can get away a lot of times with that southwest wind, and had some pretty decent trips out there. Not phenomenal, but today was one of the better days that, everybody I've talked to, you had a good trip today. Richard had a good trip today. My brother Joey had a good trip today. It just kind of everybody was kind of like, finally going, whew, man, that felt good,
Yes.
to have a pretty good trip. And the weather was the big key to it. I get people call me about booking trips, and they'll be looking at tide charts and all this. And I'm going, like, man, you can put all that stuff together, lunar tables and solar tables and tide tables. You can put all that together, and it don't mean poop unless you get good weather. So the weather's the key, and we finally had some good weather here today, and it looks like for the next couple of days. So anyway, yeah, it's been good. I mean, the croaker bite's good if you want to use croakers. The beach bite's good, really good with croakers. If you want to get around there and try to do some of that, that's a lot of moving around. But once you find them, those beach fish really don't get fished real hard. And, so that bite's been good. We fished popping corks, top waters, and slick lures today, and got it done. A lot of voodoos today. Caught a ton of fish on voodoos today. It was almost tit for tat with live shrimp versus voodoos under a popping cork until a little later in the morning. We got over in a little bit more off-colored water, and the live shrimp kind of took over, But so that was the deal for me. I never had to pull the anchor out all day. We were on the power poles and the trolling motor all day, which is the way I like to fish. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. Comparing it especially to the last couple of weeks, it was really, really a lot of fun to have as much action as we had today.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's been such a slow grind here the last. Yeah, I mean, probably feels like 2 weeks now, and we had a tremendous amount of bites. Yeah, we had a lot of bites. I just stayed on the voodoo shrimp most all day long. I had one rod rigged up to throw a live shrimp, and I think all of our keepers ended up coming on voodoos when we were fishing shallow water. But when we switched to deeper water, the live shrimp took over there.
And I'll tell you, and that's this time of year, that's probably the main reason that I carry shrimp, and I brought it today, is because if you have to get out there and fish the structure in the form of the rigs and the reefs and so forth, in that deeper water, you really, really need to have that live bait. We put it to use in the shallow water. My plan was to get out there and fish some of that structure, and just never did it. But yeah, you really, if your plan is to fish, some deep structure, which is really the true pattern for this time of year, you really need to have some live bait with you.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, you said something about slick lures. I threw a slick lure a little bit. I didn't throw it a whole lot. Did you catch many fish on the slick when the trout were biting?
I didn't catch a lot. It's just when I had the opportunity to actually get up there and fish, fortunately they kept me busy. I had some pretty good anglers today that were really able to kind of take care of themselves and take their own fish off. But when we had a few minutes, especially early this morning, I caught a handful of fish on it, and I felt like I could have caught more. We had that cloud cover early this morning, and that wind, a little bit of wind, and it really was setting up good. I was around a lot of mullet early in the morning, and I did catch some fish on it, and I felt like I could have caught more, but like I said, we finally hit a couple good hot schools, and I was doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is jumping down in the boat and taking fish off and baiting hooks when we're using bait and so forth, and I tell my charters all the time, when I'm doing this is what I'm supposed to be doing. When we're catching fish is when I'm down here in the cockpit of the boat, running around taking fish off. That's what I want to be doing. When I'm fishing, that means we ain't catching fish, So anyway, when I'm up there on that bow on that trolling motor, that means we ain't catching fish. So anyway, I was happy to be doing that. But when I did get to cast, particularly early this morning, I did catch some on it.
Okay. Is there any color that you throw besides pearl and white or pearl and chartreuse?
I throw three colors. The pearl and chartreuse, the pearl and chartreuse. No, I'm just kidding. That's all I threw today. That's
okay.
Dude. Hey, Joey named that lure after me, dude. I got to throw my own namesake lure. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm sure some other ones would have worked, but that was only had one tied on, and it was I actually had two tied on, but it was my color, so that's what I threw today. Didn't have a lot of chance to do a lot of experiment, which again was a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Well, that's a good report as always, Captain Bobby. We have a Hey Cap question for both of you guys this week. I would like to get both of your inputs on it. This week's Hey Cap is brought to us by the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, July 19th through 21st, and the Roy Martin Young Anglers Tournament, July 13th. The rodeo open competition is $50 per angler, and there are additional jackpot competitions for big game, king mackerel, red snapper, speckled trout. Tickets are available online at fishingchaos.com and are now available at the following retail outlets: Academy Sports and Outdoors, Blue Water Ship Stores, Greer's Market in Fowl River, Howell & Associates, J&M Tackle, Quint's Hardware and Sporting Goods, Pronto Pond and Theodore, and Tackle This, Shoot That. All right, guys, Wesley Newberry emailed us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and Wesley will be getting 10 entries into the C-Deck Ruler giveaway. You can enter for that two ways. You can submit an entry at greatdaysoutdoors.com/giveaway between now and July 3rd, and we'll pick a winner by random for the 36-inch C-Deck fish ruler. We found a way to put a link on the top of our Facebook page. So I'm going to pin something up there to be able to enter as well. All right. Wesley says, hey guys, love the show. I've learned a lot. This question is more for the inshore guys. When you're fishing live bait, like Captain Bobby and I were talking about, we talked about this a few weeks ago. When you're fishing live bait like croakers or pogies, is it better to have a set amount of line out or to open the bail and watch when line leaves? I'm going to go ahead and say that he's referring to free lining or
tight lining or free. Just basically fishing. I'm assuming he's asking about fishing a fin fish of kind like a croaker or a without a cork on it. So sure. I call it tight line. You can call it free line or whatever. I think we're on the same page there. But
Great.
it's we talked about this a few weeks ago, and when I'm fishing and I fish a lot of croakers, not as much pogies. I do fish with pogies occasionally, but mainly croakers when I'm using a fin fish. And like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I leave my rod in the rod holder. I put the rod out when I got a current situation and hook the croaker just through the top lip, throw it out there. And I like to, and to his question too, I throw it out there. I throw the croaker out there, and usually I'll go ahead and pay out some lines just to let it, kind of let him swim away from the boat, then lock it in gear and stick it in the rod holder. Because I don't want him right underneath the boat. You know what I'm saying? So when I make a cast, I cast as far as I can, without throwing him off, and then stick the rod in the rod holder. But then I stick it in, I lock it in gear and stick the rod in the rod holder, and just let the croaker do the work. The croaker, the hook, and the rod do the work.
So you let Rodney do the fishing for you.
Yeah, I love
Rodney
that,
Rodholder.
man. I'm going to use
Rodney
that.
Rodholder.
I do. That's it. Rodney. And Rodney is a pretty dadgum good fisherman. He don't miss them very often.
Yeah, that's right.
I would have to concur with that in many situations.
What you think, Patrick?
Well, I would have to say that using live pogies, you better have that rod in your hand. There's occasions where letting Rodney hang on to it and that trout chases the pogie down and smashes it. But the main thing is like a pogie, that dude is always swimming. He never slows down. He's always swimming. So if you rod holder a pogie, what you're going to do is exactly what would happen if you tied your dog to a tree. You tie a dog to a tree, the dog's going to go around that tree until he can't go anymore. So the pogie's going to do the same thing. He's going to go around in circles. He's going to wrap around the trolling motor, the big motor, the power poles, everything that thing can wrap around.
Great.
And you are going to have a giant mess. So if you're fishing live pogies, freeline style, you better have the rod in your hand and not rod holder hardly ever. So I would have to I would agree with Bobby that there's a time that Rodney can take care of it, but fishing a live pogie, Rodney is not a good option.
Not a good candidate.
Boy, and I can see. Yeah, I can see exactly what he's talking about, man. I can just picture that. You got a fish like that too, and that's just gonna he just hit the nail on the head. I mean, that fish, those pogies are especially a little bit more powerful fish, a little bit bigger fish. He's gonna move around so much, and I can just picture that going on, and I know what he's talking about. And you're fishing pogies without a weight, pretty much, isn't that right, Patrick?
Yeah, just straight up a hook.
Yeah, so you're fishing straight, so if I'm fishing a croaker, I'm gonna put enough weight on him to get him down to the bottom, because that's where they're natural looking. Whereas pogies, as we've seen, it doesn't matter how deep it is. They can be on the surface, they can be mid depth, they can be on the bottom, so they look real natural. Where with a croaker, you got to get him on the bottom. So by putting that weight on there, he's not going to be able to do what you're talking about with a pogie, and I can see that.
True.
And and taking it a step further too, when we're using. When I'm using some bigger baits, particularly like pogies, like he's talking about, or even big croakers, where I take the weights off of them. If I'm in a really light current or no current situation, you can take a big, healthy 6-inch croaker, and he doesn't need a weight to get to the bottom. You can just put a hook in his mouth, and I like to do that when I don't have a lot of current. And in that case, like Patrick's talking about, that's a case where I actually may want to hold the rod in my hand. And I'll leave with a spinning rod. You can just leave the bail open, or I use a casting reel and just leave the reel out of gear, because when you're fishing a bigger bait like that, those fish sometimes, even a big trout sometimes has to get that bait turned in his mouth in order to get it to go down, which puts the hook in position to actually get the hook into the fish. You know what I'm saying? So there is applications to where you could go either way. You know what I'm saying? And man. It's a great question that he asked. There's a couple different ways you can do it. And he's probably really confused right now, but I guess probably to sum it all up, to sum it all up is if you're in a current situation, and you're wading bait, you're better off maybe to stick it in the rod holder with the tail hook. Whereas if you're using a free swimming bait, like you're talking about a pogie, you may be better off just to manage that bait particularly, or to feel the bite. Have it in your hand.
Yep. Well, Bobby, I want to ask one question that some of our listeners may be thinking about is, if you're talking about dunking a 6-inch croaker in the water and you're going to wait on that bait to get hit and get the hook set, and I know what you're talking about. Like a lot of times those fish will hit it and they're going to take off running. Do you have is it totally feel? Do you have a set, like I'm going to give it a 5-second count, a 10-second count? What's kind of a rule of thumb there if you're using a big bait and a trout picks it up? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have it's not very long. It's not 10 seconds, and it's probably not even 5. I probably have to count it off in my head, because what happens when they hit that bait, you feel it. You'll feel that and that's when he's got it in his mouth. And usually I start to let line off, but I also start to drop the rod to the water. So however long it takes to go from like almost a vertical position with the rod with your thumb on the line, allowing the line to go off to let the rod tip almost fall to the water, throw the reel in gear, and then you can go ahead and, come tight on the line. And like, when I say come tight, I don't like to set the hook, because a lot of times you can pull, if you just kind of load up on it, you can feel if the fish has a hook, has the hook in them. And a lot of times if you load up on them, you'll feel the bait kind of come out. But if you haven't, and I'm doing air quotes here, but if you haven't set the hook, you can just drop that reel right back out of gear and that fish will come back and get it, Yep. So however long it takes for me to go vertical down to the water, almost touching the tip to the water, that's about all I give them. You know what I'm saying? Because that fish, he's swimming, he's swimming away with that bait, and he's using that water to force that. He's already turned it in his mouth, and he's using it to force it down, that water. So it's all that stuff happens real fast for the fish, And so, but if you jerk that, if you, again, here's the air quotes, set the hook, and you jerk that fish out of his mouth without getting the hook in it, a lot of times, like or that fish or another one that's nearby will come right back and get it. So I don't like to set the hook. So it's not I don't give them a whole lot of time. Just enough to kind of let it get turned around and him start swimming with it.
Very cool. I'd have to echo that as well. I don't give them a tremendous amount of time. So
they're real good. They're real good at getting those fish down into their mouth. I mean, they're really, really good at it. You don't have to let them keep eating. That's how those bigger trout that are eating those kind of fish, that's how they're getting big. So that's because they've gotten really good at eating those big baits.
All right, well, Cap and Bobby, that's an awesome report as always. Thanks for that. Hey, Cap question, Wesley, you guys make sure and get those in at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Cap and Bobby, as always, we appreciate it. If anybody wants to get up with
all right, Butch.
You may have a couple left out. How do they look you up?
Just go to ateamfishing.com is the easiest way to get us. It's got our phone number and our contact information, even a little fancy little form you can fill out, and hit us with an email, and we'll get you fixed up. Do some croaker fishing, or get Patrick to show me how to catch them on them pogies.
Awesome. Well, Cap and Bobby, we appreciate it as always, and keep whacking them, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, Patrick, I know that's more your realm there. You and Cap Bobby always blow my mind with all your speckled trout statistics, your spectistics. You guys are awesome at what you do.
It's always
go ahead.
Always fun. It's always fun chatting with Bobby.
I like old Captain Bobby. Man, I looked around for an onshore report, a surf report with all the high winds and everything. All of our guys just nothing, struck out. So our report for surf fishing this week is just don't go. Just focus on snapper fishing.
So it's that short, huh?
That's right.
Don't go beach fishing.
Don't go beach fishing. Maybe it'll change this weekend with that little.
I think it will, man. We got north wind. We got north wind today. Tomorrow is kind of switching easterly.
So maybe next week will be a different report, but.
Oh yeah, it's going to improve.
All right, buddy. With the, I know there's been a lot of talk of snapper fishing and different seasons and quotas and all that stuff. So we're going to have a special guest on the show again today, Mr. Scott Bann, Director of Alabama Marine Resources. How you doing today, Mr. Scott?
I'm doing well, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk fishing.
Always a pleasure to have you on. So what's been going on with you guys?
Well, again, you guys mentioned it. This little thing called the red snapper season came into effect at June 1st, and we had a fantastic starting weekend. Lots of people got to go. Lots of great fish were caught, and unfortunately, people had to walk a long way to get to their boat trailers if they were launching at Dauphin Island and trying to find a spot in Orange Beach. But a lot of great effort, and then. Unfortunately, the next couple of weekends, the weather was not as cooperative, and people did not go. And our data shows that people didn't go. The reporting shows that. And so from our perspective, that's the benefit of a state-managed program is we don't lose those fish. We don't lose that time. If we'd been under the previous federal season, where you would have gotten 9 or 10 straight days, and that would have been it. Those were lost days that were not going to come back to Alabama anglers. Anglers in other places would have caught, quote, Alabama fish. The numbers would have been consumed by another state. But we're looking at the numbers now. We're at about 70% of the catch rate that we were in 2018. And 2018 was a fantastic year. We had great weather. People got to go fish hard almost every weekend. this is back into a more typical weather pattern. I don't know why, but June and July, the weather always seems to go bad on the weekends. So we're looking at the numbers right now, and we're a little below last year's effort. After 4th of July, I think we're going to look at it really hard and determine if our effort is still below last year's. That means we potentially have fish to use on another weekend or another time period. Those are still Alabama's fish, and we have all the way to December 31st to catch them.
So that's why snapper check and snapper reporting is so important, correct?
Absolutely. And this year, right now, snapper check, our reporting rate is at about 50%, which is the highest it's ever been. And that's great news. I would rather it be closer to 100 just because those are real numbers. The more real numbers you use, the better that data is. When you're making an estimate, it's never in your favor. It's in the fish's favor. So we prefer to have a very high reporting rate. 50% is good, and that's better for the angler. You can look at last year's graph and this year's graph, and you can see that when you're estimating catch, it's not to your advantage. So I appreciate people reporting, and I still encourage others to make sure they do it timely and that they do it every time they come in before those fish are removed from the boat. And I had a captain the other day told me now that with the offline function and that there's the vessel registration stored in the app at Outdoor Alabama is where you go for the app. Once your vessel registration number is in there, it is stored. He completed the report in 11 seconds because he didn't have to go hunt his registration number, the number one hardest question. So I still tell people it's an average of about 30 seconds to fill out that information, and it's valuable.
I would agree, man. It is so easy. It's just boom, 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 and you're done. I mean, I would. It's the fastest, easiest questionnaire there is.
Now you don't even have to have a signal, so you can do it as an offline function. So once you fill it out, as soon as you're done fishing, when your phone gets a signal, it'll load that information. And we're looking at improving that system a little bit. I'm on record of saying I think Mississippi has the best system out there because they have, the hail out function, and with that you're assigned a number, and it gives you some time to get back home and close out that number. It's cleaner, it's more efficient. I think they've worked through some bugs, and so I'm not afraid to plagiarize their program. We've had some conversations with them. I think we're going to adapt ours to being a little bit more like theirs, and I think we will get much better data. And I think we're going to consider including other reef fish because I think the benefit is that we've always been in disagreement with some of these numbers we get after these assessments and these surveys that are done by NOAA. And I think we're showing under this type reporting, you're getting better data.
A minute ago, you mentioned charts, and I'm looking at it here. Didn't you say that was published for general?
It is. We are required to provide reports to the National Marine Fisheries Service because we're under an exempted fishing permit for 2018 and 2019. So the federal government said, here is your exemption to the season rules. You can set your own seasons. So we have to file a report. And so that report, the reports for 2018 are on there. And then the 2019, the first report is at outdooralabama.com. You can go to saltwater fishing, and at the page, you'll see 2019 red snapper update, and you can click on that. And it gives you pretty much all the information about this season, how many pounds have been caught, the percentage of the total of our allocation. It graphs the wave height compared to the effort. It's very informative for people who pay attention to what's going on.
It is. It's really cool. I'm looking at it here. It's some impressive technology. It's kind of crazy. Wave height versus.
And it goes through the first 3 weekends and we have a 9-weekend season this year. So it's the first third of the season. So it kind of gives you a really good snapshot of where we are.
Yes, sir, for sure. So if I understand you correctly, I know a lot of people are talking about, the season extension, et cetera, just going to kind of see how it goes through July 4th and then go from there.
Yes, because then that'll be the end of the second third. So we'll be 2/3 through the season. We'll have that long weekend of 4th of July because you can fish on Thursday, the 4th of July, as well as, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that will be behind us. We'll be 2/3 of the way through the season. Hopefully the effort will have balanced out. We'll kind of have a long-term forecast of weather. which is going to be important. And so from our perspective, we don't want people fishing when the weather is bad. We don't want them to feel like they have to get into a derby and they go, that we're going to get those fish to you. So then we'll have to make a determination if there's fish available, what is a good time to provide those back to the public? Is it adding the weekend immediately following July, the first weekend in August? Is it Labor Day? And so what we'll look at is really how many fish are left, if that's what it comes down to. So what's the best use of those fish if they're there? Because again, I tell everyone it's really more important that we do not exceed our allocation, because you have to pay it back next year. If we get into an overage situation, it puts you in a downward spiral, and we do not want to impact next year's season. I would rather leave a few fish on the table this year just to make sure that we get our full days next year.
Sure. Understood. All right, man. Sounds like you guys are doing everything you can to get the snapper to the public, and we do appreciate that.
We are, and I know we still hear it a lot that people would like to get weekdays, and that's important to us to provide as much access. We're moving into a full-time state management system. It'll finish its final federal approvals probably after the first of the year. So then we will look in the future and look at, we may send out some surveys and say, what do you want as Alabama anglers? And weekdays has been one of the primary concerns. So I think we're going to look at something like that. And then, but right now you have weekdays with our charter fishermen, our federal for-hire guys. They have a 62-day season this year, which is unbelievable. So they're straight through. So, you can fish all week long with those guys. And they've had they're catching good fish. They're like us, though. The weather can get them a little bit.
No doubt about that. Well, man, we really appreciate you being on, and we appreciate the snapper update. And that is Director Scott Bann with Alabama Marine Resources. Man, we hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely, and thanks again for the opportunity to come share the great information.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Mr. Scott.
Great show, Butch. Man, got a lot of good information. Got to hear from Angelo and Bobby and Chris and Scott. So, a lot of stuff we covered this week. Let's wrap this thing up. So what did you learn this week?
Man, I really liked Angelo's tip about, it being so thick and sargassum out there that you're just going to have to change it up a little bit. Find those dolphin on the grass patches, wahoo, marlin, same thing. I just think it's that time of year. Captain Bobby was talking about the wind direction changing up. You just got to adapt and figure out what you got to do. I'm sure you can attest to that too. I know you fished today and you've been fishing a little bit. Can you tie that into your recent trips as well?
Man, I couldn't agree anymore. Especially these last couple of. It seems like it's been forever. It feels like a month has gone by that we've had this west and southwest wind.
Mm-hmm. It really dug in there for a while.
And man, it really hunkered in, and we've just had to adapt to what we could do out of this wind. And finally, we've got some change in directions, and now we get to change it up and do some different things. And as far as fishermen are concerned, there's no better thing that you can do than adapt to what the conditions are. If you want to go out there and just say, "Oh, I'm just going to go fish my regular,"
probably ain't going to happen.
You're going to get really beat up in the boat.
Disappointed.
If it's rough, you're going to get disappointed because the fish aren't biting, things aren't cooperating. So you definitely have to adapt, and that's definitely not anything I really learned new today, but it's definitely the common theme that we had today.
Name of the game right now for sure, man. Look at all your your technology, your aerial reports, your satellite imagery. Look at if you're going offshore, look at the altimetry, chlorophyll, and all the altimetry and the chlorophyll and the Angelo said what blue water's way out there, so that's going to be a haul if you guys want to do that this weekend. But
I meant to ask Angelo, how far out is he saying that the blue water is?
Oh man, I think he said blind faith.
And how far is that?
To be honest,
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's just a big rig, one of those big giant rigs out there really far. I don't even know, to be honest with you. Man, those rigs change so much. I know the blind faith's been out there for a little while, but I haven't been in the offshore game in a while. Stuff changes, they move them and all that. But I want to say 120, 130 miles. I'd be lying if I put a number to that for sure. But it's a long way.
Yeah, long ways.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up this week. subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Thank you for co-hosting with me, Captain Patric Garmeson.
Man, it's been a blast. I always enjoy doing these podcasts, and it's really cool that I get to see. I mean, I see people at the gas station, at the bait shops, customers, people at the tackle stores. I mean, everywhere. It seems like everywhere I go, I have somebody that'll say something to me about, "Hey, man, love the podcast. Keep it up, blah blah blah." And man, we really appreciate all of y'all listening.
Absolutely.
And staying in touch with us. And I mean, I get a lot of messages and comments, and I mean, it's I almost need a secretary to keep up with the amount of comments and stuff that I get about the podcast. So
that's awesome.
We definitely appreciate all of y'all listeners out there, and it's always fun for us to put it on. So thank you.
That's right. You guys reach out to us, and don't forget to support your sponsors. They're the reason you guys get this Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report free each week. So support your local sponsors, and you guys keep whacking them. And we'll see you next week.
See you, bud.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. Also brought to you by
and also A-Team Fishing Adventures. Check them out online at www.ateamfishing.com or contact them at 251-661-7696. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by the Alabama Marine Resources Division. They remind all recreational anglers one snapper check vessel report is to be submitted before red snapper are landed in Alabama. For more information about snapper check, please visit outdooralabama.com. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farms, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patric Garmeson. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.